Well, welcome to episode 13 of At Home at Highclere for Viking.TV. And as you can see, today we're down on the farm and I'm standing here with Simon Andrews, who runs the farm primarily with my husband, and I'm just kind of joined in really because of the pigs and the marketing side of it. And here we are with our British Lops. It's an endangered species, and it sort of came about all by chance, didn't it, Simon? How we came across them. In fact, I think it was all your idea.
No, they can't blame me. That's right. Well, your idea was to clear the little area behind the orchard.
Yes.
But you thought some pigs rather than some people, didn't you? To clear that.
Yes, rather than mechanical and tractor means, it's a much better way. And Highclere had actually the fourth Earl of Carnarvon won quite a lot of awards for pig breeding, and he and his mother was also a very keen pig breeder of quite rare breeds, and got very excited when his pigs won lots of awards. Actually, rather like in the P.G. Wodehouse stories when the Empress of Blandings and the Pride of Matching, the two rival pig dynasties from Lord Emsworth and Sir Gregory Parslow were kind of rivaling each other. I sort of felt it was very much the same thing with the fourth Earl of Carnarvon. That's all he read the papers for, apart from his classical work and work in the government. But anyway, here we are now back with two pigs, and these aren't our original pigs, are they?
No, so these two are actually daughters of our two originals. So Thelma and Louise gave birth. One is from each, actually. We've got Lady Mary, who's the older one, and Lady Sybil. So Lady Mary came from Louise, actually.
Oh, did she? How very nice. Because we started off with Lady Mary, Lady Sybil and Lady Edith. But Lady Edith...
Yes, so Lady Edith has gone to a new home now.
She's gone to a new home. But it's a home with Adam Henson on Country File, so it's a very famous home. Country File is quite a well-known, very well-known TV series in this country, and I'm not sure whether it's available in other countries in the world. But he's very much of the face and force of farming, and I'm thrilled that he's got Lady Edith. And I suppose in Downton Abbey, Lady Edith left, didn't she?
She did go off somewhere else, yes.
For another house and another title. And we've got Lady Sybil and Lady Mary. And Lady Mary's much more the friendly of the two, funnily enough. And she comes up and looks for a scratch. Lady Sybil's quite a strong character. And when we were trying to put her in her hut before she was about to farrow, she wasn't really having much of it, was she?
No, we had to chase her around one evening, didn't we, and lock her in, just in case she had a litter outside in the cold.
And then, of course, Simon couldn't get her in the next evening. She had a litter outside the cold. But amazingly, they've done okay. So this is a field which had nothing, again, much going on with it. And pigs are amazing because they turn the earth over and give it a bit more life. And Simon's also created some wallows for them here. And you can see behind the happiness of the little piglets as they are sitting in the wallows. Absolutely adorable.
That's it, they're enjoying the mud. Keeps them nice and cool on a hot day. And it's quite fun for them.
They are so funny. They have a good life. They run around. There's actually 18 piglets, and to start with, if you came in here and one of the piglets squealed, the mothers immediately turned and you just made sure you had good shoes on to just keep your distance. Now if one of the piglets squeals, which actually one did last night because it got out and my husband put it back, they weren't really quite so bothered.
They're a bit more laid back. I think they've nearly had enough of them now. They're 6 weeks old now, and I think they're getting a bit tired of them.
They are. But how long before you wean them, Simon?
So there's mothers are doing okay, so we'll leave them another week or two. In a commercial world, they'd have been weaned at 3 to 4 weeks old.
My goodness.
But they're happy here. They're having a nice free-range life, and they're not putting too much strain on the two sows.
No.
So we're going to leave them another week or so, and then they'll go off, be separated into the boys and girls pen, back behind the orchard, and then these girls can go back and see King Arthur again. Hopefully another litter on the way.
But he's done them very well, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. No, we're very
hello. Have you come back to say hello again?
Have you?
Very nice to see you.
So this is Lady Mary. She's the friendliest one of the two, aren't you?
I know.
She will lay down for a cuddle, won't you?
You can lie down? You can have a wallow. What do you fancy?
You scratch your tummy, sometimes you lay down, don't you?
Mm. She knelt with me one time and she sat down. So here we've got Thelma and Louise, and Arthur's over there in the middle coming towards us. They really are a very muddy lot of pigs, which I know I shouldn't be my first thought. But when we bought Arthur, do you remember he was this perfect
He was
white,
absolutely
clean
pristine,
smelling,
wasn't he?
pristine, lovely.
Now he's absolutely covered in mud.
Yes,
It looks like he's going to go for a wallow now. Look.
I think he is.
He gets up and goes in his wallow.
How are you doing? Are you doing all right, Louise? Louise, what, she was a year old, 9 months when she came?
They were 8 months old when we got them, yeah.
She likes this bit too.
When we got them.
She's got cute scratchy things, so she arches her back up, she's so happy. Same place as on Louise, actually, in the middle. Is it nice there? It's just all your back, isn't it? I'm always amazed because they, how well they survive the cold weather outside and inside.
They're pretty good. They've got a good
so
layer of
not
fat
bothered
on
by
them.
it. Wow. It's amazing how, is it Louise lying down to breathe?
No, it's
Thelma. Flat in the
She's
mouth.
got her nose just out of the mouth.
That's good. Bloody hell.
She's going to be one side down.
Browner, the other side less brown. I can't thank you enough for all you've done with all the supporting of this. It's been such an amazing journey, Simon. I don't regret it at all.
No, they are good fun.
Well, welcome back to Jackdaw's Castle, and it's episode 13 of At Home at Viking, and I hope you enjoyed the scene with the pigs out by Maple Farm. I can't tell you what a joy they've been to learn about, to work with, and now to breed several generations. And as you gathered, it all started when Simon and I were just leaning over a bust old gate, wondering what we could do with this area. It's from Thelma and Louise to Lady Mary, Lady Sybil, and the next generation of gilts and piglets. It has been such a learning curve. You think of pigs, I think, as quite small animals, kind of quite cute, like Babe on the television series. But actually, they're really quite large animals, as you can see. And to start with, I found it a little bit, worrying about trying to figure out how to get them to move around. And they are very different, but they know your voice. So the first thing I always do when I'm starting to get to know them and arrive in the field is I start talking to them. So they begin to know the voice. They obviously can't see very much, but their sense of smell is excellent. And I suppose they can hear. I'm sure they could probably understand better than I can, probably, what I say. So, but the pigs are actually a very small part of the farm at Highclere. And if you remember in Downton Abbey, Lady Mary had a new endeavour about raising pigs. And there was some sort of talk in the press, if not in the Grantham family, about how it wasn't really going to make much of a contribution to the Grantham family, but it was a fun endeavour or a great thing to try. And in the same way, the pigs that we have it's really about highlighting the fact they're an endangered breed. And there is so much endangered wildlife which we're more aware of. And yet, of course, there are endangered domestic species as well. And these pigs are worth saving. and they're worth trying to grow the different gene pools in order to make them more robust for the future. And I hope other people might enjoy breeding them and learning a little bit about them when you look after them. The main part of the farm at Highclere is, of course, growing wheat and oats and barley, the raw substances from which so much of our food production is made. And then we have a lot of sheep on our permanent pasture. So it's an old-fashioned farm. We've been farming here. There have been people at Highclere, rather, farming here for thousands of years. Geordie and I aren't quite that old. And there are records from the 13th century, and I found that we're growing oats in the same fields that they grew oats there several hundred years ago now. When you think about it, the word agriculture was culture and food. So it's just actually taking the time to enjoy the food, to enjoy how we produce it, and to take some care of it. So that's, in a sense, part of what lies behind Geordie and so many of our endeavours here at Highclere. The fields at Highclere are surrounded by banks of wild flowers, whereas we're always looking after the birds for bird seed and making sure we're feeding the birds in the winter. There's long rotation of the crops, and then you're not therefore using so many pesticides or anything, because the crops change in the soil every year, every few years. And they don't rotate back, so you don't have, so the soil and the bugs don't get used to it, where you then have to use more pesticides if you're continually growing the same crop in the same field. So it's, again, a more old-fashioned way of looking after the nature in the countryside, growing it for our food, and leaving space for nature, not for us to trample across, not for us to walk across. And that's, again, what gives it some kind of damage, because we are moving through the nature and disturbing everything, disturbing the lapwings nesting on the ground, disturbing the stone curlews nesting on the stubble plots, disturbing the wildlife which is in all the different wild flower lays and everything else. It's a beautiful place, Highclere, and I hope in the future we'll be able to do a few conservation tours when, again, I can welcome people into a big, long beater's wagon or something, which is not possible at the moment. But that will be a fantastic project for the future. This is the next episode with Viking is looking at some of the highlights from where we've been at Highclere already. So what I wanted to do in this particular episode is give a little bit more time over to the questions, which I know have been flooding in. And thank you so much for being so part of it. You have so many questions to ask. And I know there's a lot of questions about the pigs. So rather than not necessarily talk to what you want to know, I thought I'd ask Kat to share with me some of the questions, your questions. So Kat, do you want to ask me the first question?
Yes, of course, Lady Carnarvon. Thank you very much. Our first question is from Laurie, who's asking, how close is the farm to Highclere Castle?
Laurie, thank you for asking how close to the castle is the farm. Well, the castle sits in the middle of 1,000 acres of Cape Brown Park. So that's the permanent pasture. That's where so many of the sheep graze. And then the sheep graze round and about on the hillsides around as well. And around the parkland, there's another 4,000 or 5,000 acres of farmland and woodland. So it's very mixed. It's deciduous woodland, it's softwoods as well. And then, as I've just tried to describe, I'm not a farmer, I'm just a farmer's wife. It's a mixed farm. So it's all around the castle, and the castle sits in the middle of this extraordinarily beautiful part of the UK. Well, I guess we're prejudiced, and it's also not that far from London, so it really is a world apart, but quite near London. We're very lucky because it allows us to welcome so many people. Kat, you've got another question for me.
Yes, so our next question is from Genevieve, who's in Austin. I apologise if I pronounced that wrong. How well do the pigs see under their great ears?
Genevieve from Austin, thank you for your question from Texas, I presume. And I know these are challenging times for you in Texas at the moment, but in terms of turning back to the pigs, I don't think they can see very well as well. I lift up the ears sometimes, and their eyes are not very big at all. And like many other animals, they're using their other senses. You know, we use our eyes, and when it turns to nighttime, we are less able to move as easily through the nighttime than most other animals. And pigs, I'm sure, can survive better at night with their sense of smell and their sense of hearing. So that's what they're going to rely on far more than their sight.
And the next question is from Alexa, who's in Dallas. She's asking, do the piglets make good pets?
Alexa in Dallas, thank you. I don't know if they would make that good pets. They're not really toy piglets. They are very much animals who are quite large, rumbustious, definitely quite noisy. So in terms of pets living in an orchard, that might be quite fun. But in terms of pets living in your garden, I think you wouldn't have much of a garden left. But it would be quite an adventure.
And Rod from Illinois is asking, what breed of pigs are they and where do they come from?
Rod, thank you for asking a question from Illinois. They're called the British Lop-eared pig. They certainly are 150 years old, but they're probably descended from older versions of the West Country pig in this country. West Country being towards Dorset, Devon and Cornwall, and we're in Hampshire, we're on the edge of it. And they're called the British Lop, British Lop-eared pig, for obvious reasons. I found them and decided to choose them because they're one of the more friendly types of pig, and it means that if I have got the chance to take any visitors, at least have a look over the fence, that they're a friendly type of pig to share.
And the next question is from Karen in Coralville. She's asking, where is Lady Edith?
Thank you very much for the question, Carol, about Lady Edith. So Lady Edith's gone off to live with a wonderful man called Adam Henson. There's a hugely successful TV programme in this country called Country File, and it's on every week, and it's got a great following, and one of the lead presenters is a wonderful man called Adam Henson, and he has taken Lady Edith, and she's also had her piglets. So again, it's rather a wonderful story, and it's Country File is another way of sharing stories of the countryside of the animals with many viewers on the BBC.
And Patricia from Ashland, I think, she's asking, do pigs have a strong odour?
I'm not sure whether pigs have a strong odour. I mean, I don't really particularly notice it. They're definitely quite muddy at the moment because it's quite hot. Amazingly, they sort of dry off. They're remarkably robust animals, and it's amazing how they get around, and they can move quite quickly. They can definitely shift quite quickly. When the piglets are little and the mummies come up to you if you're making their piglets squeak, but not particularly. They're in fields again away from the castle. You know, the castle's where we welcome visitors. So the farm is a slightly separate enterprise.
We now have Carol from Northfield, who just wants to say a big thank you. Can't possibly imagine how much the Highclere community is enjoying these live streams.
Well, Carol from Northfield, thank you so much for your kind comment about how you're enjoying the live streams. We'd never done anything like this before, Geordie and I, and we've started with Viking, and then every other Friday, and tonight is one of them, we do our virtual cocktail parties. So we've tried to share rather an antique, ancient building with two people who are quite good with quill pens and library and written books, and try to turn ourselves and be slightly more innovative and share it virtually. And we've learnt many more skills, which perhaps we might have learned over time. With what's happened, we've ended up having to learn a little bit more quickly.
We now have Sherry from Poughkeepsie, who's asking, where does the name Highclere come from?
Cheryl, thank you for asking that question from Poughkeepsie. The name Highclere comes, actually, the meaning's in the name, high and clear. Highclere stands on quite a high chalk escarpment, and my husband's a geographer, so he'd be able to tell you all about it. And actually that's why it's quite windy, and the wind tends to whistle around here, and indeed around Jackdaw's Castle where I'm sitting today. And it's a clear view. In Latin, in Anglo-Saxon times, it was referred to as Alta Clara, high clear.
Moving back to the farm, so we've got Anne from Huntington Beach who's asking, do you grow trees as a long-term crop?
Anne, thank you for your question from Huntingdon. Do we grow trees as a long-term crop? Well, in a sense, Highclere's always planted and grown trees, and oaks from Highclere were cut down, and they helped build Winchester College and New College, Oxford, in the 14th century. So it's a continual process of planting, growing, taking out and replanting. Some of the amazing oaks standing in the fields, we're not going to take out. Some of the softwoods or the fir, we might over time. Increasingly, we're planting deciduous trees back, as perhaps it's changed a little bit from after the Second World War, when Geordie's grandfather planted softwoods closer together. But this is not like many plantations in America or Canada. We don't have the old sawmills near us anymore. We used to have a sawmill here at Highclere, and in fact it played a part in Downton Abbey, because I think might have been Lady Edith rather than Lady Sybil, and there was a scene with a horse and a cart, and I think maybe the horse lost its shoe or something, but that was filmed down at our old sawmill, which is now a place we're beginning to use for, just a state for working, for cutting up for joinery and things like that. So in a way, it's rather wonderful. It's coming back to a similar or a joined use to how it was in the past. But there aren't so many sawmills. We've lost so many of the processes that we used to have in this country. It became much more global, and perhaps there's a case for bringing back more local processing factories, industries.
We have a lot of questions from people. For example, Susan from Palatine. She's asking, what is the update for opening?
Susan from Palatine, thank you so much for the question about when we're going to open. Well, we're looking forward to opening as we had planned to do on Sunday, July the 12th for our public opening. We've got a couple of smaller special guided tours in the week before, which will be great as we begin to get ourselves going again. We are working incredibly hard all hours of the day, because I don't think this house ever before has come to an entire stop, closed down, nobody around. So suddenly it seems rather an enormous endeavour, and we are all working really hard, whether we're building Louis' bar for the cocktails, or we've put up a marquee with an area for takeaway food, we're putting up new signs, new cooling systems, we've painting doors again, tables which look a bit old and tired. So we're doing what we can to spruce ourselves up, turn ourselves up, plant lots of pots up with wonderful masses of flowers everywhere, which I think are always so heartening and wonderful to see. Lots of benches, lots of tables. So it is non-stop. I think everyone's coming back in to help again on Sunday, because we don't want to be leaving it to the last moment. And we are so looking forward to welcoming our first visitors. That's what gives Highclere heart, to see people wandering across the lawns, standing where I'm standing, taking photographs, looking back at the castle. Yeah.
And of course, a lot of the guests will be able to wander around the gardens and see the follies like where we are today. So we've got a question from Mary in Texas. She's asking, where are we sitting right now?
Mary, thank you for the question from Texas. We are sitting in what's called Jackdaw's Castle. It's probably quite a strange name for what is an 18th century folly. The pillars, which are at the front and the back of Jackdaw's Castle, were actually from Devonshire House, which burned down in about 1740 in London. And Geordie's ancestor, Robert Herbert, bought the pillars, brought them back down here, and he created this classical folly on the east lawns, looking directly across into what was then his library and long chamber, whatever. It was an Elizabethan house at the time. I think it's called Jackdaw's because beyond it at the back, there used to be an avenue, and I imagine jackdaws roosted in the avenue, and there was Jackdaw's Avenue, so this came to be called Jackdaw's Castle, which is a bit of a mad name. I think it originally had a tiled roof, which actually with our weather would have been jolly useful, but now it's open to the skies, and it's just rather an amazing structure.
We now have a question from Jerry in Kent, who is asking, what is the Highclere bottle that I see towards your left?
Ah, Jerry from Kent, well spotted, thank you. That is Highclere Castle Gin. And in another hour and a half at 9 p.m. our time here in the UK, a little bit earlier in America, in lunchtime on the West Coast, we've got our Highclere Castle cocktail half an hour. So that's quite fun. We've got a little bit of singing, some mad animals, and we just thought we're trying to share our cocktail and our gin, again virtually, into all your homes in this very strange and challenging time. And it's a few moments of happiness, hope, something different. So if you're around, please join us. So we're doing two things at once as usual at Highclere.
We now have a question from Leanne, who is in California. Have you ever, or will you ever host something on the Viking cruise ships?
Leanne, thank you for asking me about hosting on Viking cruises. I have actually been on a wonderful Viking cruise, which started near Venice and went down to Istanbul, which I loved, and I gave a little talk, and with Karina Hagen at the time. So my relationship with Viking is to do with a huge friendship with an amazing woman called Karina Hagen and her father, Torsten Hagen. So it's fun working with friends, and I would love to jump on a cruise ship. Whenever you can't do anything, you're always really keen to travel abroad, aren't you? But I would love to see the sea. I love being by the water and the sea, and it's a very comfortable way to travel and experience different cities.
Again, we have Francine from Yelana, I think. She has just messaged in saying, I've just read Lady Almina. Bravo, a joy to read, and thank you.
Francine, thank you for your kind comments about Lady Almina and the real Downton Abbey. It was the first history book I wrote, and it was, look at Alfie down here a second, he's very funny, sorry. But Francine, thank you for asking me about Lady Almina. It was an amazing book to write about an extraordinary woman, Geordie's great-grandmother, who turned the castle into a hospital in the First World War. So her contribution to other people's lives was so much greater than anything any of us probably do today. But it made Geordie and I both think about what we should be doing to contribute to other people's lives. So it's looking out the whole time. I hope Highclere looks out. I know in Downton Abbey you're looking into a family, and that's, I guess, we're running and existing as a family as well. But then it's about stepping out, isn't it?
A lot of people are commenting on the gorgeous weather that we're having right now. Mike in California has said, did I hear that it was almost 90 degrees in England today?
Mike in California, it definitely wasn't 90 degrees today in England. I think it was probably more like about 70. Was it a bit more than that? 80. Oh, 85. Not here, was it? I'm being told it was quite hot here. I think I was working at my desk. Isn't that boring of me? So on the other hand, maybe I'll get less wrinkles. But it was a lovely, lovely sunny day, and it's a beautiful evening. So thank you so much. I can't believe it, how quickly the questions have passed today. I can't thank you enough for joining me. Honestly, it's been such a joy to be part of Viking.TV, and for the last, I think it's 13 weeks we've been doing this now. And thank you, and I hope we will carry on for many more weeks. And I hope some of you might write in, and if you've got any ideas of what you would like to hear, or the stories of where you would like us to travel to on the estate, please let us know, because that would be a wonderful path to follow. Next time, I think you've got highlights from what we've done so far. And then after that, I'm then going to take a look at the maps and geography and the archive room on the 3rd floor of the castle, which is not where anyone else normally goes. So thank you so much and have a very good weekend. Thank you. Alfie, darling, look, honestly, what a way to lie. What a way to lie.